Hello, my fellow Americans. I'm Bill Lipinski, and this is Two Guys on Politics. And next up is the number one guy on politics, my good friend, Ray Hanania.
Cleanup hitter, the cleanup
Right.
hitter on this podcast. Two guys on politics. Bill, you know more about politics than anybody I've ever met. So it's such a pleasure to do this podcast with you. Today is August 23rd, 2024, season 3, episode 25. And we're talking about the presidential election after the Democratic convention. Now we've got past the conventions, and we'll talk a little bit about the convention speeches, and what we thought about. Bill, what did you think of we 4 days of the convention? What did you think of the primetime speeches?
Well, first of all, let me say that I think the Chicago Police Department deserves great credit for the way they handled all the demonstrators that were in Chicago. They really made me proud. I was very concerned that this convention might look like the convention back in 1968, but it was not. And I have to give a great deal of credit to the Chicago Police Department for managing to keep order, and I salute them. Now,
and before you go on, let me just say that I too credit the police. I give them a lot of credit. They did a good job under circumstances that were imposed on them by a political party that wanted to censor free speech and prevent the American people from expressing their views and interfering with a rigged system that was all orchestrated to produce the results that it did produce. That convention was anything but democratic. And I don't blame the police for finding themselves in situations where protesters were pushed out and kept away from being able to express their constitutional rights of free speech. But the police did a good job. And I think the protesters did a good job too.
Well, I just want, for the record, I want to disassociate myself for the most part from your remarks. But okay, you asked me about the speakers. Yeah. I thought the best speaker was no one other than the great Oprah Winfield or whatever her last.
Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey. She was a good speaker.
I thought she did a superb job, and she looks like she's younger.
Yeah, she's going to get an Academy Award for that speech. Probably, it was so good.
Number two was Michelle Obama, who a lot of people wanted to be the presidential candidate, and I think that she would have done a heck of a job campaigning. I agree. What kind of president she would have been. Number three was her husband, Barack Obama. And number four probably was a man who's lost a little bit off his fastball, but he's still very good, Bill Clinton. And last but not least, she wasn't last because there was an awful lot of speakers, was the Democratic candidate for president, who I think did a credible job. But I will say this to you right now. I really thought that she definitely would win this presidential campaign, but there was something in the way that she delivered her speech that I don't know, frankly, if she's going to be able to stand up in debates with that bully, Donald Trump.
Right.
I was surprised I wound up coming away with that thought, but nevertheless, I did. What did you think of the speakers?
Well, I mean, just on that last point you make, I mean, if she can't stand up to the bully Donald Trump, how's she going to stand up to the even bigger bully like Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin? I mean, she's the one who pointed at them and said, they're the tyrants. They're the ones we got to get. I won't stand for them. So, I agree with you. I thought Michelle Obama was phenomenal as a speaker. Oprah Winfrey was phenomenal. And Barack Obama, a lot of the speakers were great. If I were watching the Black Entertainment Network, I would say, wow, they deserve Academy Awards. But from a political standpoint, with great speeches, you have to have substance, not cute phrases that are, wow, that is really good. That's poetry. That's political poetry. What I really wanted to hear was, what are the Democrats going to do to stop crime? What I really wanted to do was, what are the Democrats going to do to stop illegal immigration? What are the Democrats going to really do to bring everybody together instead of showcasing. I didn't identify with the convention. I didn't identify with the music, and not just because I'm Arab. I consider myself white. I didn't feel like the convention was speaking to me, and not as an Arab American, but as a white American. I did not think they were talking to me, and I think that was a major mistake on their part. And I think it'll come back to hurt them in the long term. I think that voters are going to see this as a closed, small movement, pushing certain agendas, but ignoring the major issues like immigration, like crime, like our economy is horrible. People keep saying it's great, but I talk to people, they're not able, they can't all pay their bills. Taxes are skyrocketing. The costs of sending kids to school are just double. It's far worse than it's ever been. So I don't think they address those issues. And yeah, I love to see a happy party. It was a great party. I would have had a great time drinking and having fun and slapping everybody's back and saying, good job, good job, good job. But I didn't see any substance beyond
I
that.
think that it was a great show that they put on for 4 days.
Yes.
Absolutely no question about it. They had some fantastic speakers. But I agree with you in that there wasn't a lot of substance. But a great advertising man once said, if you don't have any substance, you got to sell the sizzle. And they certainly sold the sizzle. There was
Yeah.
no question about that. They were very, very successful doing that. Now, the thing that got me more than anything else was this could have been a Ronald Reagan Republican Party convention.
Yeah.
They had American flags, what they wave continually.
Yeah.
Even though they probably had a number of people who were delegates who have burnt that flag in protest about one thing or another on numerous occasions.
It's our right as a Constitution, as
They
Americans.
they had people cheering USA, US.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
He talked, not Michelle, but Harris talked about American exceptionalism. They did a fantastic job with a Ronald Reagan type convention, showing everyone that they are true Americans. I'm glad that they imitated my favorite president's, campaigns. But by the same token, I'm a little bit resentful because they certainly do not stand for what he stood for. And two things. There was one of the famous commentators on mainstream television said, which I was shocked at, this is like a Ronald Reagan convention.
Wow.
With the flags waving, with the speeches some of these people are giving.
Patriotism.
Patriotism was right
Wrapped up.
Right?
Yeah.
So I was surprised that they had, one of them admitted to it, because I watched ABC News primarily, which was a mistake, because they had 5 people on, and those 5 people were outstanding cheerleaders for the Democratic Party and for this convention. I don't think that they ever saw one single thing that they didn't think was great.
Yeah, I think that the convention was the greatest show on earth. Barnum and Bailey. Great job. What a beautiful circus, very entertaining. Great speeches. Everybody looked nice. Everybody was happy. A lot of great snappy little phrases that that maybe we'll remember, maybe we won't. But what was missing, like I said, was also, in addition to the issues, was the critical analysis from the news media that was covering it. They were more giddy than Harris and the vice president. The news media was more happy to see this happen than the Democrats who were at that convention. The news media was more, they were more positive. They should have given, they might as well have They should have given time to the journalists to get up there and talk about why the Democrats are great speakers. They should have given primetime speeches to them because that's all they did. Oh, this is unbelievably. This is great. This is phenomenal. And I'm going, what happened to critical analysis? What happened to some? Nobody said, what are they going to do about crime? What are they going to do about the issues that Americans are concerned with? There are a few little references to it, you know, patronizing, chips that were thrown in that direction. But I really fault the media for allowing this to become less of a political convention and more of a Academy Award. Everybody loves each other, pat each other on the back. Somebody should have stood up like that one actor and slapped the guy in the face and woke everybody up and said, "Hey, buddy, we got a problem. The world, America is its weakest it's ever been. We don't have any vision for direction. We got two candidates and two parties that are fractured. We're in trouble." But nobody wants to say that. And Bill, if you say that, they're going to attack you and say, "Oh, unlike him, we know this country is great." You can't criticize the country or point out the faults. So I'm really disappointed, and it makes me worry even more about the direction we're headed in.
Well, I think that the Democrats had an enormously successful convention. And I believe that if the election would be held today, they would win the presidency overwhelmingly. Now, we'll see what's going to happen between now and Election Day. There's going to be at least one debate. There may be a second, there may be a third debate. We'll see how well she stands up to Donald Trump. Now, as I've said on numerous occasions, I can't vote for Trump. I can't vote for the Democrats. My hope is that whichever party wins the presidency, the other party controls at least one of the houses.
Right.
Either the Senate
That's
or
the best hope, I think.
I think that's the best hope also.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's I'm probably not going to vote for either one of them. I'm thinking of just throwing my vote away and voting for Jill Stein just out of principle. But I will say critically, and that my vote represents what's going to hurt Harris. Her failure to address the Gaza crisis in a fair, balanced way. She said everything that the Israelis wanted to hear and nothing that the Palestinians wanted to hear. So obviously, she doesn't care about Arab and Muslim voters. They make up 7 million voters in the United States. They're concentrated in 3 of the big swing states. Hey, we don't matter to her. And I'm telling you, when you listen to the Arab and Muslim leadership, that's how their attitude is. They're going to take their votes and vote for somebody else. And they say very specifically, if Harris loses and Trump wins, don't blame us. Blame yourselves for not doing the right thing. They need to make a point, and I agree with them. I think they have to make a point in this election, even if it results in a terrible outcome, on November 5th.
How did the Arab vote break down 4 years ago between Biden and Trump?
Oh, they were behind Biden 100%. Remember, I voted for Trump the first time, believing that unpredictability is something that we might, it's like rolling the dice. You could get a 7 or you could get craps. Trump was like a roll of the dice every time. It didn't turn out well. I lost all my money during that 4 years. So I voted for Biden. And I think every Arab American and every Muslim American, the majority, voted for Biden because they believed that Trump was out for himself when he was pushing Middle East peace, that it wasn't really about peace. It was to help his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, make billions and start a, what do they call that? That big investment thing where they have that, all that money. They put all that money in this thing. He's now like a big Wall Street investor with billions at his disposal. So they're doing very, very well. They came out of that election very, very well. But then I look at Biden, I gave him my vote and he was a big disappointment. And I don't know if it was because he was getting old and he couldn't stand up to the politics or whether he let his cabinet advisors run his administration. And he let things get out of hand. He could have done a lot more, and I don't think he did it.
Well, wasn't there uh, someone that gave a speech at the Democratic convention talking about the two-state solution in the Middle East? I thought there was someone that talked about that.
Well, yeah, they talked about the need for it, and they did reference it. Even Harris. I mean, when you look at Harris's speech, I mean, she said what I thought she tried to make a reference, but it wasn't in a positive way. As an Arab American, I'm listening to it. I'm going, okay, she just, there's a way to talk to people and a way not to talk to people. She was very strong in supporting Israel. She was very strong in supporting Gaza. The horror and being outraged by what Hamas did. Hamas is a terrorist organization. There's no doubt about it. And I've been opposed to Hamas forever, and I always believed that they were an obstacle to peace. But Hamas is a reaction to Israel's right-wing government, and nobody in the U.S. has the courage to take on Netanyahu. The last guy that did that was Obama, and Netanyahu pretty much pulled the rug out from under Obama, and he kind of backed off the Middle East. But her only reference, she said everything the Israelis wanted to hear, but from the Palestinian standpoint, she said, at the same time, what's happened in Gaza over the past 10 months is devastating. So many innocent lives lost, desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety over and over again. The scale of suffering is heartbreaking. Hard stop, period. She didn't say that, oh, well, most of those people are being killed because they're U.S. bombs that are being dropped on their heads. And we're giving those bombs to Israel, and Israel's dropping them and doing all the killing. So there's a hypocrisy there that can never be forgiven in my view.
Well, once again, I would like to disassociate myself
Well,
with
you
some.
disagree. You can't disassociate. We're on the same panel.
Okay, okay. Once you got into blaming the American bombs, that's where I had to draw the
Well,
line. Sorry.
yeah, but we give
They're
we
our
give
ally.
is
They've been our ally for years and years.
they shouldn't be our
And
ally.
our ally, you know.
Yes, but they shouldn't be. The government, that government, the people of Israel are good people. Israel is an ally, but this government is the worst undemocratic government of the Netanyahu administration. He faces 3 corruption charges 2 years ago, and the only way to avoid it was to cut a deal with the extremists in Israel's government to take over control and prevent those corruption charges from going anyplace. And, he was willing to sell out peace in the Middle East to save himself.
Hey,
And I
let's
guess,
talk about when the great Ronald Reagan was president, okay? So we can agree upon that, when it was morning in America, when we were strong, when the Berlin Wall fell down because myself, the Pope, and Ronald Reagan crushed international communism. That was good times.
it was. Communism collapsed, and we were there to catch a lot of it and help them, some of the good people in Russia, stand up. But look where it led us. We're like back to square one again.
Yeah,
What happened?
why did that happen?
I Poor leadership and the belief that tyranny somehow, um, that we could work with it. That, oh, you put a nice face on tyranny, and oh, they're our friends, and let's open businesses there. Let's open, jobs and work with them, give them money. And then next thing you know, the tyranny strips the mask off, and then they decide that they're going to kick us. And then they take everything, and then they decide to invade Ukraine. I'm glad. The only nice thing out of Democratic convention was the at least the strength to say that they're going to stand up and defend Ukraine. I thought that was really important, but that was the only message I heard that was of
Okay,
any satisfaction for me.
okay, well, maybe you were hoping for more from the convention than I was. But I was very happy with the convention because I thought they used so many of the things that my hero Ronald Reagan used at his conventions that they were
Right,
imitating him. And I think
right.
that was just great that the Democratic Party, in order to be successful with their convention, had to pretend like it was a convention being conducted in behalf of the great Ronald Wilson Reagan. Is there much time left in this podcast, Ray?
I don't know. Is there a sense of depression here? At least on my part, it's like I'm disappointed in the convention. I was disappointed in the Republican convention too. No, but I'm mostly disappointed in the media that they became orchestrators of the convention rather than analysts of the convention. I really wish that they would have critically analyzed what had taken place, what was good, what was bad, rather than fluffing it up and saying they hate, making it obvious they hate Trump so much, and I don't blame them, but they just couldn't see. They'll take anything that's not Trump and stand behind them, and especially if there's a minority spin to it that will protect illegal aliens and criminals who commit crimes. If we could just ease the punishment on the criminals like we do in Cook County, maybe they could spread that version of law enforcement from outside of Cook County to the rest of the country. That concerns me and that upsets me. And it's more important than whether Trump is a good person or not. You know what I mean? That fear of
Yes,
crime and immigrants.
I know
I-
what you mean. And
Yeah.
I want to say very sincerely, I said many, many months ago that I was with the Israelis. I'm still with the Israelis. But many months ago, I said that I thought Bibi Netanyahu was conducting this war in a terrible fashion. He was destroying one building after another building that people lived in. I know that he said that, Hamas was using these buildings where there could have been other ways to go about it.
Right.
How he has managed to alienate almost every country in the world because of the way he conducted this war, except the United States of America.
Right.
And I feel bad about that. And I wish we could find a solution to this. And I hope that some country, someplace around the world, will be willing to stand up to Bibi Netanyahu and say, you got to end this. You got to have a ceasefire right now. You have to stop killing all these people. Otherwise, we are going to be we have to totally cut ourselves off from you. And that would be a tragedy to cut ourselves off from Israel. But that might be the only way to stop him. And I mean that very, very sincerely. And I understand the pain that you have as an Arab from America. You were born and raised Oak Lawn, right? Or
right. Burbank, southeast side of Chicago, and Burbank, Palestinian, immigrant parents. But Bill, believe me, that doesn't mean I abandon the principles that make America great. You want to come to this country, do it legally. And I think your view is one that I actually agree with. I don't like Hamas. They've been a horrible, disruptive terrorist organization since the beginning. And I don't criticize the Israeli people, but I do criticize the Israeli government. I'm allowed to criticize the American government, but for some reason, if I criticize the Israeli government, they're going to call me names. So for me, it's we've given this government in Israel $100 billion in 3 different disbursements. And all I can think about is how that $100 billion could go to do better things for the American people. And to me, that's disappointing. And nobody running for president wants to bring that point up. They're afraid to.
Listen, talk about running for president before our program is over. I understand that your former candidate is going to endorse Trump. Is that right?
Which former candidate?
Bobby Kennedy Jr.?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about Bobby Kennedy. He went from 20% to 5%. He went from being relevant to almost on a downslide to be irrelevant because and again, I think the media has been beating up on him so much they showcase the craziness, but ignore the good stuff that he's talked about. And I guess he's getting out of the race and he's going to endorse Trump. That's going to help Trump. Kennedy was going to take a lot of votes away from Trump. Just like the way Jill Stein is going to take a lot of votes, not as much, but just enough votes from those key states from Harris. Those 2 third-party candidates, they can't win, but they can undermine certain candidates. And I think that's what's going to happen.
I wonder what Bobby Kennedy's going to get from Trump.
Probably he's going to be the head of a new Warren Commission. Put him in
okay.
I reopen the Warren Commission. Reopen that and do it right this time instead of lying about all that stuff and hiding. They're still hiding all the documents, Bill. 100,000 documents they won't release because they think it's going to embarrass J. Edgar Hoover, or the mob, the ties that some politicians had with mobsters.
I think it's time to go, Ray.
Well, listen, this is a reflection of the politics today, in a way. I mean, it just it's trouble. It's worrisome. For me, it's very worrisome
Well,
about
it
what's
is
going to happen.
worrisome. It's worrisome for me too, because the point that you make about the Arabs, I don't feel as strongly as you do, but
Right.
I have concern about them. I have empathy for them, but you do not see their position articulated very well or very often on television, on the radio, in newspapers. Okay, and
They
I
do a
think
terrible job.
But the press in general does a terrible job because the
Yes.
press is no longer, I believe, interested in facts. They're interested in promoting individuals and causes that they personally believe in.
Right. I agree with you. And now, at the end of a very depressing podcast, I'm Ray Hanania.
I'm Bill Lipinski, and until next time, when we have a much more enthusiastic, uplifting, positive podcast, I turn it back to my good friend Ray Hanania for any closing comment you might have.
Nope, just that don't go get some coffee and caffeine, people. After you hear this, don't feel depressed. Things can get better. It doesn't mean the door's shut. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week on Two Guys on Politics. Bye-bye.